So at this point, both sides will be giving our closing argument, basically a summation of everything you've heard, just so you can jot down things, take notes if you feel comfortable. So you all heard all of the evidence in this case, and the distinction between a civil case and a criminal case are different. And what that means is, in a civil case, our proof, what has to be in the box, is greater than 50%. Touch more than 50%, maybe a featherweight more than 50%. 51%. It's not 100%. The standard is a little bit more than 50%. In this case, you've heard lots and lots of testimony. We've had the plaintiff who's testified. We've had the plaintiff's mother who's testified. We've had the plaintiff's grandmother who's testified. Those three witnesses explained their recollection about the scar. There was testimony that the scar, or the cut, came from this incident. That's a very, very important fact. There's really nothing to contradict that. If anything, our expert witness, Dr. Mulliken, you remember he came to court. He's a very well-respected doctor that specializes in plastic surgery. And his testimony was that, in his opinion, as an expert, that when the way that this scar, the way that this cut happened was from fingernails, and that there were three different scrapes, three different scratches, and that the middle one was the deepest one, and that's really the one that he worked on. Now, the issue in this case, well, before I go to that, is the photograph that you saw, okay, which is in evidence. There's a photograph of the scar, which is a 2-centimeter scar. The photograph, because of the skin color, it does not show well in photos. The cut that was on the face does not show up as well. So you may have to really look at it deeper than just had it been someone else. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is I really just don't understand. The defendant came here, used all of this foul language. This is a court of law. You cannot speak this way in a court. I have never seen this before. And for her to use all of those words, F word, B word, all these different words, it's a disrespect to us. It's a disrespect to the judge. It's disrespect to this courthouse. You cannot come to court and say these kind of words. It's just disrespectful. And just because Miss Ellis, just because Miss, also known as Cardi B, is a celebrity, doesn't mean that she could just say and do whatever she wants and attack people. Okay? If you recall, just to give you a little bit of background about Miss Ellis. When she was 19 years old, she moved out of her house. She went to college. She's a college graduate. She has a bachelor's. She went on to become a security guard for 4 years, from 2014 to 2018. She did whatever she needed to do to become a licensed security guard, and she did that job. And when this incident happened in 2018, that was cut off. She lost her future in security work, in something further, whether it's FBI, police, attorney, whatever she wanted to do. This incident cut it off. No more. Because of the trauma that she sustained. And I get it. There were doctors who gave their opinions. For example, the defense brought Dr. Rosenberg. Nice guy, gentleman. He complimented me. Maybe he's doing that because he's a psychiatrist and he knows what to say to twist everything. But the point is, he got $40,000 to come here and basically tell us that the plaintiff didn't suffer any emotional injury. That's not the facts. The facts are Emani Ellis was working as security guard. There was a change. Okay, it's very, very traumatic to be assaulted and battered. I can only imagine the embarrassment, the emotions, the pain that Miss Emani Ellis suffered. Now, in this case, there was overwhelming testimony that Miss Ellis was working as a security guard at the time of the incident. There's no question. She was in full uniform. She had a badge on. Even the defendant admitted, yes, I understood that this person was a security guard. And there has to be some level of respect. These are not doormen or doorwomen. The defendant, when she came to the building, instead of listening to the plaintiff, to listening to her commands, you got to do this, you got to do that, please leave the building, different commands were given to her, which none were followed. They were all ignored. Instead, the defendant thought that, Miss Ellis was on her phone. She was telling people that I'm here. These were the thoughts that were going through her head at the time, and she's testified to those. However, that's not the case. Miss Ellis testified that she's never had a fight before. She's never done anything to harm anybody. She's never had any fight with anybody. And her mother and her grandmother also testified. She's a model citizen. She's a hardworking person. And she simply, her whole goal of doing this, to be here and sit here and go through this, is so she could move on with her life. Sometimes people have to be heard. Be heard. So by you all being here and hearing everything that's gone on, you have given her a sense of closure where she can move on and go on to the next step and the next phase. She's only 32 years old and she has plans. She has plans to do other things in her life. So we're very thankful that you gave us that opportunity. Each and every one of you, we're very thankful. The other thing I wanted to mention is the phone. It would be impossible for someone to be videotaping someone and be on a phone call at the same time. I tried it myself. And the error message that you would get if you tried it is, recording video is not available while on a call. So it couldn't be. The two of them couldn't be done at the same time. Miss Ellis told Cardi B multiple times, I am not recording you. I am not telling anybody that you are here. I'm simply doing my job. And instead of maybe agreeing or investigating further, Miss Almanzar, Cardi B, got angry and started yelling and cursing and spitting on Miss Ellis and calling her different words, using the N-word to disrespect her, calling her the B-word, calling her fat, anything to try to trigger her and make her upset and embarrass her. Sometimes words are more painful than the physical. And to add insult to injury, she then cut her face and caused a scar on her face. And what happened then? Miss Ellis had to go see different doctors. The court did read about Dr. Scher a sentence that basically that it's undisputed Dr. Scher died. And Miss Ellis basically testified that initially, a couple months after the incident, she saw Dr. McKenzie, a psychologist, through her workers' compensation. She was given that. She got 7 visits with that doctor. During that time, she also saw Dr. Scher, who was another plastic surgeon. Unfortunately, we don't have him here. We don't have his records because he passed away. So that's why that was read to you in open court, so that it's some sense of fairness. Why there's no records from Dr. Schiff.
Objection, Your Honor. Assistant.
Then we learned throughout the case that when Cardi B came to the building, she caused a disturbance. She caused a disturbance. She was yelling and screaming at the top of her lungs, going crazy, yelling and screaming, to the point where two other witnesses, Miss Malcolm, which was the secretary of the doctor, and Dr. David Finke, was so loud that those two people came out after about 40 to 50 seconds. Now, the issue with that is those two witnesses didn't see the four things that happened before that, which happened in the 40 to 50 seconds before. So yes, they're witnesses, but they're not witnesses to that first part, that first segment, which would include taking a swing at Miss Ellis, spitting on Miss Ellis, calling her the N-word, and ultimately cutting her face. None of that was seen by those two witnesses. So yeah, they're witnesses, but they're witnesses to the aftermath. They're witnesses to what happened afterwards. They're not eyewitnesses. They don't know what really happened. And when they arrived, Miss Ellis was so upset. Can you imagine all those four things happening? Being disrespected, embarrassed, who knows what else happened? All of that was done to her, and she still was able to contain herself to a certain degree. But yeah, sure. I mean, naturally, she was angry, she was emotional. So when these two witnesses come out of their offices, they can only see an angry person. They didn't see what led up to that. And they had assumed that it's her fault, maybe, or that she did something wrong. But again, those two witnesses didn't really see much. They saw something after the fact. And then you have Miss Malcolm, who decided on her own, this was her choice, to squeeze herself in between the two people. Well, that's a risk that she took. And if she somehow got a cut to her face or a scratch or something, well, we don't know who did that. We really don't know. She didn't even know. Miss Malcolm testified that she did not know who scratched her face. She has no idea. What does that mean? It could be from either one. It could be from the commotion that's going on. These things happen so fast, we have no real idea as to what really happened. Unfortunately, there was no video camera there. There was no other witnesses that actually saw it. So it really comes down to one thing. Do you believe Miss Ellis? Why not? You should. She's a hard-working security guard. She was doing her job with no prior anything.
Assistant.
At some point during the trial, the defendant showed you Exhibit 232. If you all remember this photograph, Exhibit 232, this is a photograph. Now, the issue with this photograph is there's really no way to know the date that this photograph was taken. There's no way to know. We don't know when it was taken.
Objection.
There is no proof of when this photograph was taken. It could have been taken at any time, before or after the incident. It could have been, and in this case, the defendant testified that this photograph was taken on the date of the incident.
Objection, Your Honor.
That was her testimony. But where's the proof? Do you really believe that a celebrity can't prove when this photograph was taken? She testified that this photograph was taken at the All-Star, NBA All-Star game. There's no proof of that anywhere? That's just false. There is proof of when this photograph was taken. It just wasn't given to us. It wasn't provided to us. So we can't rely on this photograph because there's no date on this photograph.